Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Rigvir virus maternity ward. I will show you where these births take place from morning until night. This lady is professor and scientist, the creator and mother of the Rigvir virus. She dedicated her entire life to researching and developing this virus, ensuring it serves people worldwide in their fight against cancer. Her motto was, "Science, science unite, promise to protect mankind." She can rightfully be called the first scientist in the world who taught a virus to serve mankind. A book has also been written about her. Here's the Rigvir maternity ward, our super laboratory. We purchased this building when it was over 100 years old. Over several years, we invested millions to restore this architectural monument and build a laboratory inside it. This is where live viruses named Rigvir are produced. Viruses that travel the world to help cancer patients, as well as healthy individuals who wish to live long, happy, and safe lives. But let's go. I will tell you more about the Rigvir story. The history of the Rigvir virus's development is longer than the virus itself. Long before she began working specifically with this virus, its inventor, Aina Muceniece, discovered several cases in medical literature where cancer patients who had been bitten by a dog or another animal with rabies experienced tumor remission. This was the initial spark that led to the thought, hey, maybe a virus can actually treat cancer? In the 1960s, scientist Aina Muceniece began developing this field. The world's first cancer virology laboratory was established, and the idea of using viruses in cancer treatment was put into practice. 60 different viruses were initially selected. From those, the most capable ones were narrowed down, and within a relatively short time, scientists became convinced that viruses could suppress and even destroy cancer cells. Furthermore, a significant breakthrough occurred while the Institute of Microbiology, where Aina Muceniece worked, was collaborating with Russian and American scientists on a polio vaccine. While administering the vaccine to various groups of children, it was observed that one group did not show the expected immune response. Upon investigation, it was discovered that these children had enteroviruses in their intestinal tracts. This immediately led to a eureka moment. Enteroviruses, in their own way, protect the human organism. Until then, enteroviruses were considered orphan viruses. Science at the time could not understand their purpose, so they were given this orphan status. Following this discovery, certain types of enteroviruses began to be referred to as good viruses. These correlations gave scientists further confidence that a virus could treat cancer. Through extensive research, the most potent enterovirus, ECH07, was selected. Deep longitudinal studies began with this specific virus. The virus was rendered non-pathogenic, non-toxic, and adapted to various cancer cells to ensure it could destroy different types of cancer. The mission of the Rigvir virus, the Rigvir Group, and my own mission is to be a step ahead of cancer, so that people all over the world are protected from this terrible disease in a timely manner, and its spread is halted globally, thereby reducing suffering and increasing love. It is a live, harmless virus that was isolated from a healthy child more than 60 years ago, and scientists have taught it to seek out and destroy cancer cells within the human body. As a form of natural intelligence, the Rigvir virus is able to distinguish cancer cells, infiltrate them, and replicate. The Rigvir virus doesn't think. It is treating cancer. It simply finds various types of cancer cells delicious. As soon as the Rigvir virus has replicated in sufficient quantities, the cancer cell dissolves, and the Rigvir virus can move on to find its next meal. For the younger generation, the effect of the Rigvir virus can be described as biorobots endowed with natural intelligence that enter the human body and, like snipers, destroy cancer cells without harming the organism. First and foremost, it is the mechanism of action. This virus is both oncotropic and oncolytic. This means that after being introduced into the human body, it is capable of seeking out cancer cells and infiltrating them. Once inside, the virus begins to replicate, consuming the cancer cell from within. As a result, the cancer cell is destroyed, and the newly multiplied viruses move on to find the next targets. Effectively, the Rigvir virus operates like a form of natural intelligence. Furthermore, Rigvir has a dual effect. Upon entering the body, the virus triggers an immune response, causing the body to increase the production of various immune cells. At the same time, the Rigvir virus modifies the structure of the cancer cells, making them visible to the immune system. This allows the immune cells to target and destroy the cancer cells purposefully. The result is a dual-action impact, a direct attack on the cancer cells, and an indirect activation of the immune system to independently fight the disease. From a regulatory standpoint, what is truly unique is the fact that Rigvir was the first virus in the world to be registered as a medicine. It was only after Rigvir that the Americans and the Chinese followed with their own viruses. However, those were genetically modified viruses derived from aggressive disease-causing strains. Rigvir is an enterovirus, and in the classical sense, it is a pathogen. But during the creation process of Rigvir, this pathogenicity was removed using virology methods. During the research of Rigvir, several toxicology studies have been conducted. It has, of course, been studied both preclinically and clinically, and has been recognized as having a high safety profile. After the registration and commercialization of Rigvir, it has been used in clinics for more than 20 years, and during these years there have virtually been no reports of any significant side effects. Regarding the effectiveness of Rigvir, it has been proven on several types of cancer. Effectiveness studies were conducted on approximately 1,000 people even before registration, and in the post-registration period, Rigvir has been successfully applied in the treatment of various types of cancer. I would especially like to emphasize the treatment of melanoma. Melanoma, as is known, is the most aggressive cancer, which metastasizes the most. A publication about the Rigvir experience in treating melanoma was featured in a very respectable American journal, Melanoma Research. The publication clearly proved that Rigvir is 4 to 6 times more effective than the solutions offered by modern pharmacy. But for ordinary people, the best confirmation of effectiveness is living people. And here I would like to note the year 2017, when a group of cancer patients, most of whom used virotherapy with the Rigvir virus, went on an expedition to Mont Blanc and overall reached various peaks. Several of the patients had late-stage cancer. Well, these people are still enjoying life, and in my opinion, there is no better proof of the effectiveness of the Rigvir virus. The expedition can be seen in the documentary film, Another Taste of Life. It was a unique expedition in world history, featuring cancer patients from several countries. Most of them were using cancer virotherapy with the Rigvir virus. It was their choice, as they wanted to inspire cancer patients worldwide and demonstrate the effectiveness and harmlessness of cancer virotherapy at a time when other cancer patients were lying in hospital wards. The expedition was organized by the Virotherapy Foundation of Aina Muceniece, the founder of virotherapy and inventor of Rigvir. The expedition lasted 2 weeks. The patients lived independently at the foot of Mont Blanc in France and reached several peaks, including the highest summit. What made this expedition unique? I can describe this expedition group. There were mountaineers and an expedition leader, but I especially want to highlight those who were in late stages of cancer. Salesian from Chechnya had stage 4 kidney cancer. After kidney surgery, he also had metastases in the adrenal gland. Oginkov's had melanoma and metastases in his armpits. Christina from Ukraine, melanoma metastases in the liver. Her doctor predicted a survival time of 6 months, but she recently celebrated her 10-year anniversary. Zoya from St. Petersburg had an ovarian tumor. Her relatives brought her to the Latvian clinic lying down, effectively in a terminal stage, but just a year later, Zoya was bringing tourists to Latvia. Miraculous, isn't it? Then there is Jane from America. She had aggressive ocular melanoma. With this type of melanoma, life expectancy is 9-12 months. And Zane, thankfully, she had an early stage, and that is a story about using the Rigvir virus for metastasis prevention. I especially want to emphasize that all these people are still enjoying life 9 years after the expedition. A film about this expedition called Another Taste of Life has been made and is available in several languages. I invite not only people suffering from cancer to watch it, but also those who are healthy and perhaps finding things difficult for other reasons. After watching this film, nothing will seem too difficult for you anymore. The Rigvir virus continues to be developed by the family of its creator, Aina Muceniece. She represented the first generation dedicated to the science. In the next generation, her daughter ensured that the virus was registered so that it would become legally available to people. I am the third generation, working to ensure that this virus reaches the widest possible range of people. It must be noted, however, that the Rigvir development team also includes the fourth generation. Thus, we are talking about the development of the Rigvir virus within one family spanning 4 generations, and I hope to welcome the 5th generation to our team soon. Currently, the Muceniece family and the Rigvir Group are focusing more on the production of the virus itself and on further scientific research. Several commercial directions are also being developed. As for Rigvir as a medicine, this direction has been delegated to other companies through licenses worldwide. The Rigvir virus is also being commercialized as dietary supplements, both in capsules and other formats, which I would be happy to tell you more about. As a newcomer to pharmacy, a young man, an idealist who wanted to save the world, I was surprised by the unhealthy environment that generally prevails in pharmacy and medicine, where one would think everyone should join hands to help and do everything possible to assist cancer patients in every way. I quickly realized that it is one massive bloody ocean where there is no room for humanity. It is a place of greed, corruption, envy, and even hatred. In this entire environment, the cancer patient has been turned into something of an ATM from which everyone wants to withdraw money. Pharmaceutical companies with their drugs, clinical research companies constantly offering various miraculous studies, and, unfortunately, oncologists as well. But what surprised me most were the public organizations, dozens of which I have seen. In the end, you realize that these are not charitable organizations at all, but pharmaceutical satellites whose sole purpose is to brainwash, collect donations, or advertise the latest toxic dose. All of this shocked me. An environment that is supposed to serve people was actually working against them. The second major surprise came later when I began meeting with cancer patients and saw immense gullibility, a lack of self-criticism, and even elementary foolishness. Patients allowed themselves to be misled with such amazing ease, blindly following the lead of the pharmaceutical industry and smilingly believing the so-called doctors, who would more accurately be called pharmaceutical company managers. Without any criticism or analysis, patients allow various toxic substances to be injected into their veins, substances that make them feel worse and worse, and in the majority of cases, it all ends in the cemetery. Yet, the patient's relatives, like zombies, then bring flowers to the oncologists and say thank you for the treatment of their deceased loved one. Unfortunately, I must say that the cemeteries are full of such deceived patients. My grandmother, Aina Muceniece, discovered and studied the Rigvir virus at the Institute of Microbiology in Riga. Currently, Rigvir's operations do not take place at that institute, but in a different building. Of course, everything my grandmother did still surrounds us. We have a very large library and scientific publications from the 40-year period of Rigvir research, various studies, patient registration logs, and the like. It is, of course, very surreal. It is like stepping into a time machine. Sometimes I am looking for some information, I pick up a publication, and I am very surprised by the immense volume of work performed by the scientists of that time. How high the level of credibility was in all of it. And what is interesting, there is an idealism permeating everything, where you clearly realize that these people worked for the sake of science and humanity, not for profit. I think all these studies could still be a fairly significant contribution to the development of virology worldwide. No, of course, I didn't realize it. I remember from my childhood that I was in the laboratory several times where my grandmother, Aina Muceniece, worked with various viruses. She was always telling me something very clever that I didn't understand, but that entire laboratory environment felt like a spaceship. It was indeed very interesting, but I didn't realize the significance at the time. Interestingly, I recently read a publication that originated when I was about 3 years old, and the title of the publication was "Come Back in a Few Years." The publication showed my grandmother in the Rigvir virus laboratory along with me and my sister. I was a tiny, tiny boy sitting at a table, and in that publication, there was a question from a journalist. Tell us more about that virus you are working on. And my grandmother, Aina Muceniece, answered, I won't tell you now. I don't have all the results compiled yet. Come back in a few years. Now, you have come to me, those years have passed, and I, that little boy, am sitting before you and can tell you, yes, that virus has proven itself excellently, and it is now available to people all over the world. I am very happy about it, and overall, this past and present form such a surreal plot. Definitely not. My first education was as a carpenter, and after that, I was a lawyer. I began to take a greater interest in science and viruses after the age of 25. Of course, I knew what my grandmother, Aina Muceniece, did, but I didn't realize how significant it all was for people. My first impressions of anything related to science came through books. The first one that comes to mind from my childhood, if you can call it science, is Gerald Durrell's book, My Family and Other Animals. I could say something similar about the Rigvir virus today. It is like a member of my family. I have raised 7 children, and the Rigvir virus is like the 8th, and I must say, quite a difficult one to raise. Well, those values didn't come to me in a way where my grandmother wrote them down for me, but I have heard my grandmother tell many stories about how difficult her childhood and youth were, and what she was like throughout her life. As the years go by, these memories come back to me more and more. To understand the path that led to the Rigvir virus, you have to understand that at the age of 16, my grandmother, Aina Muceniece, went to the Second World War. They put a bag on her shoulder and told her she had to go to war, and she only returned home 4 years later. She didn't even have a chance to say anything to her parents. During the war, they experienced great horrors and terrifying things. She worked as a nurse behind the front lines. All day long, she had to help people and participate in the amputation of legs and arms. Then she had to carry all of that out and throw it in the snow where hungry dogs were running around. She had to listen to soldiers suffering, calling for their mothers, and dying. And from all these horrors, my grandmother lost her memory for a while. She no longer remembered the names of her mother or other relatives. Even when writing letters home, she addressed them to her grandmother without a first or last name, only indicating the post office. After the war, she found out that the letters had reached their destination. Thank God. As a young girl, it was agonizing for her to endure all those horrors. At one breaking point of the soul, she even wanted to end her life. She went to hang herself, took a rope, but upon entering the forest and hearing the rustling of the wind in the tops of the birch trees, she remembered her home and realized she still wanted to see her home. She wanted to see her mother. Before the war had even ended, Aina Muceniece began studying at the Medical Institute in Moscow. She lived in extreme cold. There was no food or normal living conditions, and the only place she could warm herself was the Institute's small stove. She often had to experience hunger. When there was nothing to eat, she took flour sacks that had once held flour, soaked these sacks in water, and boiled them, and then drank that porridge. That was their daily meal. Remembering these stories, I understand the determination with which she moved toward becoming a doctor to later help people. After the war, she returned home to Latvia, finished her studies, and began working at the Institute of Microbiology, where she founded the world's first cancer virology laboratory. It was a path through countless thorns and unbelievable difficulties until she reached her little island of happiness, the laboratory, where she could begin to fulfill her dream of helping humanity. I grew up with these stories and have seen with my own eyes how selflessly my grandmother served science and helped cancer patients. In my work today, I have always tried to adopt my grandmother's determination, perseverance, courage, and honesty. My grandmother always said, "Work in such a way that you can always look yourself in the eyes." It is not as if I think about it every day. On a daily basis, I am intensely occupied with development issues, and I am often very busy with my thoughts. However, this question of responsibility has come to the forefront powerfully several times. It is actually an existential question that has arisen during moments that were critical for the Rigvir virus and the Rigvir Group. When, speaking in business terms, you are practically bankrupt, or in medical terms, you are close to clinical death, At that moment, yes, of course, there have been thoughts about whether this endeavor is worth continuing, given so many difficulties. But then you remember the hardships your grandmother went through, the people who stood by her and dedicated their lives to creating this wonderful virus, and finally, the thought, if I don't do it, then who else will? And if you don't do it, then everything ends. The Rigvir virus will be lost to humanity. So, it depended on me alone whether it would continue to bring light to the world or not. What greater responsibility could there be? Thank God, the situation is no longer so heavily dependent on me alone. Rigvir already has a strong team. And if something were to happen to me, there is also my family, which has grown significantly under my care. The family turned to me in 2003, specifically my grandmother, Aina Muceniece. At that time, I was a first or second year law student, and my grandmother asked for help handling legal matters regarding the registration of the Rigvir virus and similar issues. I began my journey with Rigvir with great joy and enthusiasm, and effectively from the very first days took on the role of leader and developer. Of course, there was much I didn't know. I had to learn a lot and overcome many challenges. Currently, I am the CEO of the Rigvir Group, and I simultaneously work on matters of strategy and vision. I have worked not only on business management, but also on many other issues, including scientific matters, intellectual property, marketing, sales, etc. I must have a good command of all these areas so that the Rigvir virus can live not only in the laboratory, but also venture out into the wide world. I would divide this into 3 stages when discussing global obstacles. The first stage was during the birth of the Rigvir virus. It was being seriously researched and reported on in scientific circles, at international conferences, and elsewhere. As you know, all of this took place behind the Iron Curtain, within the territory of the Soviet Union. To give you an idea, for example, in 1961, my grandmother Aina Muceniece traveled to the Tokyo Oncology Congress to report on Rigvir research. However, when she wished to participate in the Tokyo Oncology Congress again in 1971, that time as the head of the organizing committee, the KGB no longer allowed her out of the Soviet Union. There were concerns that the Rigvir virus, along with all its technology, might disappear along with Aina Muceniece. If the KGB had known how much my grandmother loved her children and her then occupied country, Latvia, they certainly would not have done that. Later, she had one more chance to travel to the Sofia Oncology Conference in Bulgaria, where she was accompanied by KGB agents. These few occasions were the only opportunities she had to report to the wider world about Rigvir. This Iron Curtain was the first massive obstacle that prevented the world from learning about Rigvir. We know that at that time, chemotherapy was making its triumphant march, and we can only guess what the world would look like today if Rigvir had made it past that Iron Curtain. As for the second stage, it was the collapse of the Soviet Union. By the end of the 1980s, all necessary research had been completed, and all the required permissions from pharmacological committees and various ministries had been obtained so that Rigvir could be registered and its use could begin in clinics throughout the USSR. But the Soviet Empire collapsed, and Rigvir remained where it was created. In tiny Latvia at that time, Latvia had no medicines agency or any other state structural units capable of properly registering Rigvir. For a short while longer, my grandmother Aina Muceniece used Rigvir as an experimental medicine. But that lasted only a few years and was eventually halted because the necessary permits were missing, and Western medicines were already taking over Latvia. Thus, the development of the Rigvir virus stopped for more than 10 years. However, in 2004, this obstacle was resolved and the Rigvir virus was registered. It became the first virus in the world to be registered as a medicine. But soon the third obstacle approached, which was rooted in big pharma. The new world of pharmaceuticals turned out to be a bloody ocean. Naturally, no one there was waiting for such a unique and miraculous virus. But we have overcome this obstacle as well, adapting to the new and ruthless world order. We have transformed ourselves along with the Rigvir virus, and we believe that nothing and no one can stand as an obstacle to us anymore. The greatest challenge was the fact that I wasn't a professional. I was a lawyer, I was a student. Everything was new to me, and the biggest hurdle was that you practically couldn't get advice from anyone. There were no similar examples in the world. There was no company developing a live virus as a medicine. There were no registered viruses. And besides, the challenge wasn't just the development of the Rigvir virus. The first virus in the world registered as a medicine. but also the fact that the Rigvir virus was forming an entire medical field called cancer virotherapy. The challenges were numerous. Over these more than 20 years, the little Rigvir virus has led me by the hand through various lessons in business, marketing, intellectual property, science, research, logistics, and so on. In fact, we had to learn everything from scratch, including from our own mistakes. But now, I believe we have successfully managed it all. First and foremost, Rigvir SE is unique because it is the first dietary supplement to contain traces of a live virus. Its development concept is also unique as the Rigvir virus originates from the pharmaceutical industry. Rigvir initially proved itself in pharmacy with the status of a medicine, which means that the Rigvir virus possesses the highest level of evidence. It has undergone preclinical and clinical trials, has numerous scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals, has passed multiple authorizations by drug regulators, and has years of clinical experience. Effectively, the situation is such that the Rigvir virus as a heavyweight has entered the lightweight category. This path is easy for Rigvir and simplifies many things. And we are pleased that we can be not only strong competitors to other dietary supplements, but also a pioneer in the industry with a new product, unique composition, and formula. We hope that with our pioneering experience in pharmacy, we can strengthen the dietary supplement industry so that it can offer more and more effective tools for cancer prevention. As an idealist entering the oncology industry, I faced a serious dilemma. On one hand, you have a severely ill patient who needs help, and on the other, there is the business, and you, as the head of the company, must earn a profit. The patient is already struggling, yet they must also find a way to pay for expensive medications, which often involves the decision to sell their house, apartment, or other property. This troubled me greatly, but I managed to overcome this dilemma because the Rigvir virus, compared to other oncology drugs, is many times cheaper, up to 100 times, while also being significantly more effective. We also addressed this dilemma through other original solutions. During the time when people from all over the world were coming to Latvia for the Rigvir virus, we became the first pharmaceutical company in the world to create its own private compensation system, where residents of Latvia could obtain the Rigvir virus at pharmacies significantly cheaper than non-residents. Principally, I believe that oncology drugs should be available free of charge, especially for those who are suffering severely. I believe that with the Rigvir virus, given its production technology, we can move closer and closer to this noble goal with every new Rigvir virus product, if Big Pharma will forgive me. It is very easy in my case because I know what I am doing. I know the Rigvir virus and what it is capable of, and at the core of all my decisions has always been an honest attitude, both toward those around me and toward myself, so that I can look myself in the eyes at any moment, just as the inventor of the Rigvir virus, my grandmother Aina Muceniece, once taught me. I always do the maximum possible, and if we, together with Rigvir, are unable to achieve the desired result at some point, then that remains in the hands of God or the universe, but not on my conscience. When I entered the oncology and pharmaceutical industry, it never occurred to me that such relationships would form, as I came to develop the virus, the technology, and the business. However, as things turned out, I participated in the founding of the International Virotherapy Center alongside scientists from all over the world, and I have founded several cancer clinics in various countries, including a center of excellence for cancer where not only patients were treated, but doctors from all over the world came to learn the guidelines of cancer virotherapy. While doing all these things, I naturally came face to face with many cancer patients, and I still maintain friendly relationships with many of them. Two types of Rigvir virus patients come to my mind. One group consists of those who have children named Rigvir babies because they were born during Rigvir therapy. Often, if a woman is diagnosed with cancer, she cannot undergo chemotherapy, and there is a dilemma. Either you use chemo and the baby dies, or you use nothing and both die. In such cases, the Rigvir virus has repeatedly been a good solution because it is an oncolytic but non-toxic treatment. And then there is another type of patient who has emotionally linked their family with the origins of Rigvir. One patient whose life we saved, and who is now a friend of mine, told me, "If a granddaughter is born into my family, she will be named Aina, after the inventor of the Rigvir virus." After some time, a granddaughter was born, and so a little Aina came into the world. She is now about 8 years old and has a happy grandfather. There was also a cancer patient who was bedridden with late-stage metastatic melanoma, and thanks to Rigvir, he recovered. Despite the doctor's disbelief, he had the chance to father a child. Before the child was born, he said, "If it's a boy, I will name him Jurgis after you." I said, "Very well." and a boy was born. I only found out some time later, and yes, he indeed named his son Jurgis. Then I asked when little Jurgis was born and received the answer, January 23rd. That is my birthday. It's hard to imagine a more beautiful gift. Yes, for a long time, the Rigvir Group developed the Rigvir virus as a medicine. It was the first virus in the world to be registered as a medicine, but we quickly began to realize that the world of pharmacy and medicine was not waiting for us. Even oncology doctors did not expect such a medicine, one that is effective, does not cost as much, and is miraculous for oncology, a medicine that causes no adverse side effects. We felt increasingly uncomfortable because, to put it mildly, various provocations against Rigvir began to occur. There were inspections from all sorts of controlling institutions in several countries simultaneously, and smear campaigns were spread worldwide, including on Wikipedia. At one point, we realized that continuing was quite futile. We understood that a hit had been ordered on Rigvir, and we made the decision to halt the medical direction, perhaps to return to it someday, but not today. We continued to independently develop other directions that are not as overregulated and do not face such heavy lobbying from big pharmaceutical companies. One of these directions is the supplement segment. This is also more understandable to people, and there we can reach many, many more people worldwide. In fact, we can talk not only about cancer patients, but also about people who are currently healthy and wish to ensure a long and safe life for themselves. In order for Rigvir to successfully continue living, new partners and new investments were attracted. We worked on technologies to transform Rigvir from an injectable form into another form suitable for dietary supplements. A company called Smart Nanovirus Limited was founded in the UK, and as a result, the first food supplement in the world containing traces of a live virus was created. It is intended for people who have increased risks of developing cancer, effectively healthy people who are quite close to the threshold of cancer. There are many risk factors here: genetic inheritance, various precancerous diseases, positive tumor markers, an unhealthy lifestyle, and of course, age over 60. That is how this unique supplement, Rigvir SE, was born. You see, when the Rigvir virus was being developed as an anti-cancer medicine, I thought about people who are actually suffering from cancer. Every year there are about 20 million new cases, and in total, around 100 million people have a cancer diagnosis. However, working with Rigvir dietary supplements that contain a live virus, I am thinking not about 100 million, but about the 8 billion people who are still healthy today. My task is to ensure that the Rigvir supplement reaches these people faster than cancer does. If I speak about the profile of the specific person for whom the Rigvir supplement is intended, my focus has always been on people who are smart, self-critical, who study scientific literature, are interested in innovations, and who do not trust pharmaceutical managers in white coats. The Rigvir SE formula is based on several ingredients: vitamin B2, whey, and, of course, the Rigvir virus itself, or more accurately, traces of the Rigvir virus. Why traces? This is so that the product, this capsule, complies with the specifications for a dietary supplement. Rigvir SE is a capsule that must be taken orally. It has a special coating that passes through the stomach to reach the area known as the intestinal tract, which is effectively the natural environment for enteroviruses. First and foremost, Rigvir SE is unique because it is the first dietary supplement to contain traces of a live virus. Its development concept is also unique, as the Rigvir virus originates from the pharmaceutical industry. Rigvir initially proved itself in pharmacy with the status of a medicine, which means that the Rigvir virus possesses the highest level of evidence. It has undergone preclinical and clinical trials, has numerous scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals, has passed multiple authorizations by drug regulators, and has years of clinical experience. Effectively, the situation is such that the Rigvir virus as a heavyweight has entered the lightweight category. This path is easy for Rigvir and simplifies many things. And we are pleased that we can be not only strong competitors to other dietary supplements, but also a pioneer in the industry with a new product, unique composition, and formula. We hope that with our pioneering experience in pharmacy, we can strengthen the dietary supplement industry so that it can offer more and more effective tools for cancer prevention. They definitely do not. I think they rely too much on modern medicine. If they knew that only a few types of cancer can actually be cured, and in other cases, medicine cannot do anything meaningful and people simply die, then perhaps they would take much better care of their health and cancer prevention. There are many things you can do for prevention purposes without any money. For example, in the case of melanoma, without paying anyone anything, you can quickly check your own body to identify suspicious moles and thus detect cancer at an early stage. As we know, a miracle cure for cancer does exist, and that is a timely operation. Furthermore, people ignore statistics and reports from international organizations. The World Health Organization has released a statistical report stating that during this generation's lifetime, 1 in 5 men and 1 in 5 women will develop cancer. That is a fact. Fortunately, the supplement industry is not yet as saturated with bureaucratic obstacles and pharmaceutical lobbying, which often dictate unscrupulous rules in various sectors. The supplement segment is much easier for people to understand and far more accessible. As a rule, supplements are used by people who take care of their health and cancer prevention, people who are wise and want to live long, healthy, beautiful, and safe lives. Working with such goal-oriented people is much more rewarding. These individuals know what they want, and with such an audience, we can more quickly achieve our main goal, stopping the spread of cancer worldwide. People should not need supplements in their daily lives, because they can get everything they need from nature and natural products. However, if a person is busy in the daily rush or finds themselves in situations where these products are not available, then dietary supplements should definitely be used to prevent the onset of the next phase, where medications become your food. Yes, well, first of all, our first dietary supplement was the Rigvir SE capsule, which contains traces of the live virus and is intended for people with an increased risk of cancer. The Rigvir SE capsule is very deeply rooted in medicine and science, and its use is recommended in the form of courses. However, when we talk about the new product, Rigvir X, which will soon reach the public, it has a different format of use. It is in liquid form, commonly used as a shot, and will be positioned in the daily use category. A different technology has also been used in the production of Rigvir X, which will make it accessible to almost all social groups. Rigvir X will be intended for absolutely healthy people who want to live long, happy, and safe lives. Regarding the development of Rigvir X, there will be greater opportunities for scaling due to both the price and the new production technologies. This appeals to me strongly because the more effectively we can scale, the more financially accessible we can make this product and ultimately reach our main goal faster, stopping the spread of cancer worldwide. Rigvir X must become a game changer, or rather, a changer of the oncology paradigm within the food supplement industry. And we very much hope that, thanks to the Rigvir X project, oncologists will be left without work in the foreseeable future. We hope that oncologists are happy about this, because, as is known, all doctors have taken the Hippocratic Oath. The future, and indeed the duty, of the Rigvir virus is to reach every home and every family throughout the world, and finally, to end up in a museum dedicated to the eradication of the cancer epidemic. To be self-critical, to follow innovations, and not to give in to fear, because as we know, fear is the greatest ally of the pharmaceutical industry. Under the influence of fear, people often do irrational things, and a very good example is specifically cancer treatment. Driven by fear, people agree to the craziest things, allowing toxic substances to be injected into them that yield no visible effect and cause side effects from which people even die. I would urge people to listen to their hearts more. By taking care of their health, well-being, food, and exercise on a daily basis, and by avoiding stress and similar factors, these are things that cost nothing. Effectively, one should try to always stay a step ahead of medicine, rather than waiting for the moment when they have to go to a doctor with a real problem. For example, in the case of cancer, the situation is grave. In very rare cases can patients be helped, because modern medicine is powerless, except for timely surgeries. Everyone should remember that while you are healthy, you have many projects, you are running around, and you have certain dreams and future plans. But the moment you find out a cancer diagnosis, you very quickly realize that no one can help you, and you are effectively left face to face with cancer. At that point, you no longer care about any other project. All that remains is the fight against cancer, and almost always, your final project is writing your will. Unfortunately, love yourselves and love those close to you. Keep in mind that you will not live on this planet forever, so enjoy every day with joy. Every day, be grateful for what that day has brought, and do not be afraid of anything,